have a comparison of this mode of report writing, there are few fundamental features which clearly draws a line between these two modes of writing. The nature of the audience is also very much important when we talk about the mode which is to be selected for the report writing process. If we talk about the deductive mode of report writing, which is of course starting from the journal and moving towards the specific. So this is the mode basically used for the routine messages, as it is written over here that this is basically used for routine messages, the general information that you want your audience to perceive and understand. The second point is also quite relevant and related to the first point, and that is that it is basically used to convey a neutral information which is not partial, which is not biased, where there is not even a single touch of subjectivity. Of course, we know that things have to be kept quite objective, but it has to be conveyed in a neutral form, and that's why you call it as a neutral information. So not only a new routine message, but neutral information. And from this neutral information, you can also say that it is basically an open and clear presentation of information. So things are kept quite open, they are conveyed in a neutral manner, and basically this mode of report writing is used for routine messages. So that is how you structure your deductive report. On the contrary, if we talk about the inductive mode of report writing, so what is the point from where it is going to begin? Yes, the specific information that you have found and its interpretation, then moving towards its justification, and finally moving towards the conclusion, which would be accepted as a general stance. So that is how you structure your inductive report. And what are those features which are to be kept in mind, and what are the important factors to consider? Well, this is the important point, which is clearly drawing a line between deductive report and the inductive report. In case of your inductive report, your discussion section that we have discussed and will be discussing in detail in the upcoming few minutes will come first, and then we will move based on that discussion towards the conclusion. That is the basic difference between the deductive report and inductive report, because that is not the case in case of a deductive report. Because in case of a deductive report, your conclusion comes first, as it is based on general observation, and based on those general points, then you move towards the discussion. Whereas in case of your inductive report, you will be discussing to defend your stance at the first place. You will be interpreting the points first, and then based on those discussion, you will move towards a conclusion. So that is the basic difference, the first point to remember when it comes to writing an inductive report. Secondly, how would you be able to defend yourself, and how are you going to make your report more inductive? Well, it would be done by the use of factual information. So if you have factual information, you will not have any problem to defend your stance, and that is the key factor to make your report inductive. And based on this factual information, you will be in a position to draw a conclusion. The third and fourth point is also very much important and should be considered, should be kept in mind while preparing this or selecting this inductive mode of report writing. When you are writing this inductive mode of report, you should keep in mind that you are going to expect, and you will be expecting, a very strong resistance coming from your audience. Your audience would be giving you a tough time. And why is that so? Because point number 3, I explained it to you, that inductive mode is basically used in case of your informed readers. They are well aware of all the statistics, the figures, the graph. They are well aware of the background, and that's why they will be giving you a tough time, which is basically the expected resistance. So how would you come out of this problem if we consider it as a resistance? How are you going to face it? Well, the solution lies at point number 2, that your factual information will be your weapon. It will be the tool which is going to help you defend your stance. If you know how to defend that factual information, if you know how to interpret it, you will be able to convince your audience, and they will concur with your agreement. By concur, I mean agree. They'll second your thought, they'll second your opinion, and then a time will come when they'll stop giving you any resistance, and that specific information will be generalized, specific to journal. So, inductive mode of report. Describing it in a figure, that is how you can have this comparison in the form of a T chart or a T. So if we talk about the structure of a deductive report, so far the manner in which we have studied it, you begin with the title page, you talk about the executive summary, then you provide a good introduction, and from this introduction things have to be seen very carefully, because from this introduction we have just moved towards the conclusion and recommendation. So what can I call this? It's trying to be more general. You are moving from journal information, and now with the passage of time, as you have provided the journal information, now you can move towards the discussion. Have you seen the difference? Right from the conclusion, you are coming towards the discussion section, and from this discussion you try to draw a good point which will become specific. So this is the thing which needs to be considered while we are talking about the deductive report. The rest of the sections are references and the appendices, but this was the basic thing to consider, that you are basically moving from general to specific, which will be a little different when we come to the inductive mode of report writing. Now, how is it going to be different? Well, you start from the title page, the executive summary, then you move towards the introduction, then we move towards the interesting difference, and that is the discussion. So have you seen the difference? Just look at the left side of this slide and you will find that we have this conclusion over here, whereas on the right hand side we have this discussion. So on the basis of what factors are we doing this discussion? Well, we can say that over here we have carried out the analysis, and on the basis of that analysis we got some facts and figures, and now on basis of those facts and figures we are doing this discussion, making it more specific. Once this discussion is complete and now we have raised our stance, then we can move towards the conclusion. And this conclusion, once we have achieved it, is going to turn that specific information to general. So specific to general means the inductive mode of reasoning, and from here of course you will see that we will move towards the references, finally coming to the end of the report. So these are the points, hopefully, that you are clear. You need to be well aware of, keeping in view the nature of your audience, and the objective, the goal of your overall report writing process. If these things are clear to you, then you won't have any difference. You won't have any difficulty to pick either one of these two, keeping in view the circumstances and what you have to perform and the manner in which you are supposed to jot it down for your readers. So hopefully now you have a clear-cut difference between an inductive mode of report writing and the deductive mode of report writing. And now we can proceed onwards with the next upcoming sections.
In today's lecture, you had a comprehensive overview of the structure of a report, starting with the title of the report. The first and foremost part of the report comprises of introduction. Then comes body findings, conclusions and recommendations. The three basic questions before writing a report are: what is it? How do we write it? And when do we write it? The executive summary provides an overview of the entire report, covering all of its major sections. It is preferred to compose it by the end of the report, summarizing each section in one sentence. In that way, it would be able to give a complete overview of how to structure your report. So, a report must have its background, purpose, main findings, conclusions and recommendations. The first major section of a report is of introduction, which introduces the topic, gives background, defines its purpose while referring to the previous reports. In the second part comes the body of the report, in which you carried out the analysis or initiates a discussion based on factual data which leads to the findings of the report. A report should have a proper structure. It has to be organized in headings and subheadings, so there must be clarity in your ideas and should be written concisely. You always need to cite the sources you have consulted by giving proper reference of each source. The data can be represented through graphics, and the graphical representation of your findings should be properly labeled. The third section comprises of conclusion, which is the comprehensive summary of your report that sums up the main sections, providing a brief overview of each section. The fourth section is of recommendations. By that, we mean giving suggestions for future area of study. Recommendations are generally based on the findings of your report, keeping it factual, comprehensive and concise. You are done with organizing your report.
So hopefully, I think most of the things are clear to you. We have looked into the structure of a report. We have talked about how it begins by the title page, then talking about the executive summary, then moving towards the introduction, then talking about we discuss and provide the methodology, then talking about the results and findings, and finally moving towards the basic conclusion, after which we provide some suggestions and recommendations. So, while moving towards the upcoming lectures, we are going to go into the details of each and every section. For example, in the coming lecture, I'll be touching the parts of the title page. I'll be giving you some samples as well. Then talking about the executive summary, how is it written. I'll be providing some samples as well, so that you may have a clear idea how different parts of an executive summary are prepared. and how they can be discriminated, keeping in view the nature of a report. Many things are about to come, and we'll have some good practice as well while understanding the comparison and contrast between the different natures of these reports. Thank you.